Next week, join us for what?
I didn't expect that.
I'm just going to. That's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about the. Coming up, it's the biggest media pitch of the year. Hello and welcome to IDCom's MediaSnack, episode 64. So today we're focusing on what is likely to be the biggest media pitch of the year.
That's right. Procter & Gamble have announced a European media review.
Yep.
We assume about $500 million, something like that in play.
Yep. And stay tuned because at the end we'll be giving you details of an exclusive webinar that we're running next week, which will give suggestions to marketers on how to react to Marc Pritchard's 5 media transparency action points. All coming up on MediaSnack in just the time it takes to eat a sandwich. Okay, so P&G, one of the world's largest advertisers, or the world's largest advertiser, I think we've talked a lot about in the last 10 days, not least because of Marc Pritchard's barnstorming speech, which you can see in last week's episode. But at the same time, not connected, they've announced a European-wide review of their media agency contracts, right?
That's right. So we first heard about this in the summer, in June, when P&G announced that they were looking to review their kind of media agency contracts. That became official last week, and they announced that they were putting up all of their media agency contracts up for review across the UK, Ireland, certain key Northern European markets, and the Nordics as well. We think about $500 million in play. Most of the big holding groups are going to be competing for this. It's going to be a massive prize.
Because the incumbents, so Publicis Group, Starcom has the UK business. I think MediaCom, WPP's MediaCom has a lot of the European business.
That's right. Dentsu have a lot of southern European markets as well.
Invited.
They're invited, and obviously there's Omnicom, right? So Omnicom are going to be going into bat, we think, with Hearts and Science, because they've got the P&G business in the US.
Yeah, exactly. And we talked about that back in the summer. So in a previous episode, there was the announcement that Hearts and Science were going to launch in the UK. We assumed that that was something to do with a potential P&G review. And Hearts and Science, that's the model that was created for P&G's business in the US. So that's going to be a really interesting one. I mean, it's going to have a huge amount of attention anyway, because of the scale of it, because it's a $500 million review.
That's right.
It's going to have all the main agencies competing for that scale of billings. It's going to have Hearts and Science tested significantly by P&G outside of kind of home base for the first time. And then you add on to that, it's being conducted in, under the glare, if you like, of the attention from Marc Pritchard's action point speech from just last week.
That's right. So there's so much to play for, and the consequences of being successful in this review will be massive, because whichever agency or agencies ultimately win out in this review will essentially have Marc Pritchard's kind of transparency principles being endorsed.
Yeah, implicitly.
That's right.
But that will be, I mean, because that's a big thing. It's less perhaps our perspective, but the industry-wide reaction to this is going to be, well, whoever wins this obviously fulfills the principles and
conforms to it.
And by the same token, sadly, losers of this pitch, it may be inferred that they haven't met the standards of P&G. And given that P&G have now set the high benchmark, have set those standards for the industry, that's a huge pressure, isn't it, on the agencies now? It's going to be the most hotly contested win, I think. It goes way beyond the scale of the billings.
Right, and as you say, the focus of the industry will be on it, and will be on how these big holding groups put their best foot forward, not only strategically. We know that data and data-fueled strategies are a really important part of the way that Procter & Gamble kind of approach marketing communications, just simply through the way that they've looked at it in the US. But then underpinning all of this will be the requirements to deliver a kind of a really transparent, trust-based relationship.
Yeah.
So it has massive implications, I think.
Yeah. So agencies across Europe will be readying themselves for this. I'm sure making this a kind of priority pitch at the moment. If you're planning a pitch in Europe, something to be aware of, isn't it? It's because these things tend to suck a lot of the energy and the talent across agencies onto a pitch like this. So if you're running a European pitch or a global pitch, just be aware of that. You've got now to compete with P&G in the marketplace. That's a kind of challenge. And it goes beyond just a pitch, as we've said. So this is a story we will continue to follow, because how this plays out is going to, draw new lines in the sand. If Hearts and Science is the winner of this, it's kind of interesting, because it then says, well, that's clearly a new model. If P&G are endorsing that new way, does it reflect on all the kind of traditional media agencies as being the old world versus the new world? That's one thing.
Absolutely, but then equally you've got Starcom, who's the incumbent, recently gone through a massive reorganisation through Publicis Media. Steve King will not want to be putting that account under any kind of further scrutiny. He will want to make sure that he kind of retains that as a business. But
maybe it will create, what I was going to say is that maybe it will create a new model. Omnicom were kind of stretched to create Hearts and Science as a result of the US brief. This is kind of thing that might trigger the other groups to really think about other disruptive models of media agencies. So I think, it's under these pressures, right, that diamonds are created. We're going to see something new happen, and that's exciting.
It's absolutely fascinating.
We'll follow it. So our anticipation was that 2017 was going to be is going to be a busy pitch year, and we're 6 weeks into the year. There's already been a lot of pitches have already been announced for the year, but also a lot of results that we've already started coming in.
That's right. So we think about $2 billion worth of reviews have concluded. Fiat was a piece of business that concluded at the end of last year and moved out of Group M. This week we had Molson Coors. That's about $1 billion worth of media.
That's Publicis Media picked that up as well.
Publicis, that's right. Mars, who were kind of realigning a lot of their buying arrangements in a number of markets. I think that's about $500 million.
Publicis as well.
Publicis again. So they've had a bit of a
good
run. And then Sainsbury's moved.
So that's a big UK retailer. Had been with PhD for years and years. 15 years or more, I think. Actually went through a review about 18 months ago, but the business has moved very suddenly into M6, which is a kind of subdivision of WPP. So that surprised a lot of people. So there's big movement, big stuff going on.
Publicis seem to have kind of got some momentum, actually. So we'll see how that pans out. But it's been a busy start to the year, and it's only going to get busier.
So next week, please join us for an exclusive webinar where we will be looking into the action plan of Marc Pritchard's IAB speech. It'll be a 60-minute webinar, the first 20 minutes of which David and I will share with you some suggestions of immediate, kind of mid-term and long-term actions that we think marketers might be taking in response.
Then we're going to have 20 minutes where we've got some subject matter experts that will come in and talk specifically about viewability, about verification, and about media contracts.
And that will leave us about 20 minutes in the webinar for a Q&A. So you can either pre-submit questions or submit questions live, and we'll deal with them if we have time. So there's a link below. Please use that. Register now, secure your place, and we look forward to you joining us on the webinar next week. But that's all from MediaSnack this week. Bye for now.
Have a good weekend.